Platform, Sean Plunket here and with you through to 10 o'clock this morning when Martin Laws takes over, and then at 1 o'clock, Muddy with It's Only Sport. Thank you too for the generosity of a number of people who've come forward and made contributions to what I'm calling Project Napoleon, and that is the bid to get Marty and Lockie to the Rugby World Cup so they can cover it for you. And we made the decision yesterday, if we're going to get them there, we're going to keep them there till the end of it, even if the All Blacks are out. Because the money of rebooking flights and everything, we did crunch the numbers. So we're still gathering money for it, and some people have been super generous in regards to that, which is great. I also want to say, man, some reaction to talking about dental care yesterday, and I don't like the way the Greens have said they're going to fund it, but we have had such interest in that story, and it sparked so many discussions in the office amongst my friends. We're going to, after 8 o'clock this morning, we're joined by the New Zealand Dental Association to talk about why, and look, I've just got to say, why dental care is so bloody expensive in this country, almost unaffordable for many people. All right, but let's keep talking and start off talking about the economy today. We are technically in a recession. Dire warnings, interest rates going up. The question is, have we done, and part of that recession is, of course, is inflation. Have we done all we can to reduce inflation, or is there more that could be done, and might it keep going? Is it under control or out of control or just holding? To find out, I thought we should talk to someone who knows something about economics and for economic forecasting, and that's Gareth Kiernan. He's the chief forecaster for Infometrics, and he joins us on the phone now. Gareth, lovely to have you with us. Good morning to you.
Morning, Sean.
All right, no doubt many Kiwis doing it tough. We're hearing a lot about bread and butter. One of the drivers of difficult economic times, particularly if you like for the person in the street, is inflation. Inflation, also inflation affecting things like mortgage rates. Firstly, where are we at, would you say, in terms of inflationary pressures in the economy right now?
There have been signs over the last 6 to 9 months that those pressures are easing, but it is interesting when you sort of delve deeply into the numbers. A lot of those easing pressures are coming from international things that's really sort of outside the Reserve Bank's control. We're talking lower shipping costs internationally, a slowing global economy, which means that demand globally has softened as well. There's not as much pressure there. Supply chain disruptions that were, really critical throughout COVID, they have been easing as well. So, look, there are good parts of the story in there, but domestically we still have quite a lot of pricing pressure going on.
All right, where is that coming from, Gareth?
What we've seen, of course, throughout the pandemic is the labour market has got incredibly tight. The unemployment rate got down to 3.2%. That's fed through into stronger wage inflation as businesses have had to pay more to keep their staff and indeed pay more to poach the guy from down the road as well.
Yeah.
So, recently, particularly it's spread away from those sort of goods that have been in short supply throughout the pandemic towards services which, do really rely on that labour component to provide those. And so that is still an area where there is a heck of a lot of pressure there.
All right, so we're still short of workers despite big changes, though reluctant changes from the government, it seems, to immigration settings. One of the results of inflation and economic recession is unemployment. You would think in some ways that would balance out.
Yeah, and it's heading in the right direction for inflation to slow. It sounds harsh for people who are, striking more difficult working conditions, but we have seen the unemployment rate pushing up to 3.6%. Now, as economists, we tend to think that if the unemployment rate's below 4%, you're still getting sort of pressures coming through there. It's still what we would think is an unsustainably tight labour market. So, look, unemployment is rising a bit. It will still continue to push up, I think, as those migrants come into the country, and probably job creation not keeping pace with them. But at the moment, the sort of influx of migrants that we are seeing is simply satisfying many of those acute labour shortages that have built up over the last couple of years when the borders had been shut.
All right. One place many New Zealanders get hit in the pocket when inflation is high is interest rates. Have they maxed out or not?
Well, the Reserve Bank, of course, signalled a couple of months ago that the OCR is on hold for now. And most forecasters, including ourselves, do think that this is probably the peak in interest rates. But there are a couple of forecasters out there who are still saying maybe later this year we need to have a further interest rate rise. And of course, we have seen wholesale markets pushing up interest rates at the longer end of the yield curve, which means that some of those longer-term fixed rates are still continuing to drift up at the moment. I guess the critical issue for us is that we have had still strong employment growth, as I mentioned, coming through, as some of those long-standing vacancies have, are being filled by people coming into the country. But if that employment growth is, I guess, indicative of still sort of strong demand conditions, or stronger than the Reserve Bank would like to be feeding through the economy, then there is potential that you get to the end of this year and the Reserve Bank may look at it and go, no, there's just not enough evidence coming through that we've done enough and we need to do more.
Yeah. We're at the very start of the election campaign period, or almost there. Is that going to affect the economy, or does it historically affect economic activity?
Yeah, look, everyone I talk to in business goes, things are going to stop for 3 months, are they? While there's this heck of a lot of uncertainty with, who's the next government, what are the policies going to be around that. The sense I get at the moment is, in fact, that things are tending to truck along reasonably well, and maybe it's a sense that, we know what we have under Labor. We've had their policies for the last 6 years, and if they remained in government, then you sort of know what you're getting. With National, talking to a business audience, they tend to be, more in favour of a national government, and so there's a little bit of an expectation there that potentially, if there is a change of government, then things become a bit more favourable for business going forward.
Okay, does that mean favourable for people or not?
Well, that's an interesting question, isn't it? There's a lot of debate at the moment around, has the government got getting enough tax? What are they doing with that money and how are they spending it? We know that there's a lot that needs to go on in the infrastructure space. There's more money for education and health, all that sort of thing. So it's a difficult position, I think, for any government at the moment, given you're heading into a recession. Yeah. You're in a recession, rather, I should say, and there's sort of a lot of pressure on those government accounts, yet there's still plenty of spending demands out there. So, yeah.
Gareth, the other thing is I have noticed, and it's happened today in the health sector, a whole lot of big union disputes or pay disputes are being settled, I'm presuming because those organised unions see the possibility of a change of government and they want to get their money in the bank, their wage settlements in the bank now.
I mean, yeah, some of those have been ongoing for a while, but potentially I think, look, we know in the health space, for example, that we need more nurses, and we're not paying them enough to get them to stay in the country. They'll head overseas and get better paid and have probably better working conditions as well. So, those pressures have been evident for some time, and I think whether it was a national government or a Labor government in place, there was going to have to be more money being paid there anyway.
Yeah. And look, just because the OCR is on hold, someone's just texted me and said Westpac have raised their rates, their short-term mortgage rates, twice since the OCR went on hold. Night doesn't always necessarily follow day, does it?
Well, no. I mean, look, some of those rate rises at the shorter end have been a little bit surprising to us. I mean, we have seen a bit of pressure in wholesale markets, but some of the banks, just seem to have been pushing them up. I'm not sure whether they had been particularly sort of chasing market share in terms of their lending previously and had been offering, lower rates than might otherwise have been sustainable. But yeah, I mean, like I say, 4 to 5 year rates, I can understand those ones drifting upwards, but those shorter sort of 6 month and 1 year rates should be a bit more closely tied to the OCR.
Is there any group in terms of, and look, I don't know if you've got stats on this, have we seen a rise in mortgagee sales?
I haven't got stats on that, but we have seen an increase in the number of people behind on their mortgages, either by 30 or 90 days. That's not necessarily translating through into mortgagee sales a great deal from what I can tell. Probably the other point I'd make on those sort of loan numbers and how many people are behind is they're still sitting at about a quarter to a third of the level that we saw following the GFC. We're talking about sort of non-performing or people behind on their loans at around about 2017, 2018 levels. So not that concerning. Yes, it's heading in the wrong direction, but nobody was really talking about it a great deal back in those years, and it's certainly not looking GFC critical at the moment.
I hear you. Gareth, what's your advice to the average New Zealander, and I'm sure statistically you've got an idea who that is? Don't take any more debt, control your expenditure and tough it out?
Yeah, look, it is about being more cautious with your spending in the first instance, and that's not an easy thing to do when you've got food price inflation running at 12%, and that's something that you can't really substitute out. Petrol prices, of course, have been drifting up, both in terms of the fuel excise going back on, but more concerningly, I think, just in terms of some of those commodity price trends as well, pushing them up, and the weaker exchange rate. So, yeah, battening down a bit in terms of that spending and being more cautious about it. In terms of your mortgage, it's kind of sucking up some of those sort of 6.5%-7% rates as best you can. And look, I see ads sometimes on my phone or whatever, people saying, "Oh, this is the down part of the property market. It's the best time to dive in." Well, yeah, there's not the affordability around housing, for example, is still pretty tough at the moment. So I don't think I wouldn't be jumping into the market on the basis that prices are going to be shooting up anytime soon.
Yeah. Good on you, Gareth. I thank you very much for your overview this morning and for your time. Gareth Kiernan from Infometrics. How are you doing it? Are you doing it tough? I don't know. I feel, to be honest, at my age, you get to an age and you've been through, I don't know, Rogernomics, the GFC, everything else. Have I got food on the table? Yep. Can I put gas in the car? Yep. Can I pay for my teeth? No.